Hi, this is Josh from FinalScanPro. In this video, we're going to learn about quoting in research writing step by step. By the end of the video, you'll know exactly how and when to use quotes correctly. So what is quoting? Quoting is the process of using someone else's words exactly as they were originally written or spoken. For example, while reading the biography of Steve Jobs, I came across this powerful quote. "Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life." Now imagine you're writing a paper about Steve Jobs and you want to include this quote word for word in your paper. To do that correctly, you need to follow three important rules. First, you must not modify the quote in any way. Second, you must enclose the exact words in quotation marks. And third, you must cite the author and the year. If the quote comes from a journal or book, you also need to include the exact page number. The exact rules for quoting can differ between referencing styles, but the core principles stay the same. You always enclose the quoted text in quotation marks, and you include the page number when it's available. One of the most important things to remember is knowing when to quote and when not to. This is a decision you need to make as a writer. Ask yourself, does the exact wording really matter? If the idea can be paraphrased without losing its impact, then paraphrase it. But if the wording is especially powerful or memorable and would lose meaning if rewritten, then keep the original quote. For example, in this case, we can either use a direct quote or paraphrase the idea in our own words. We could say something like, "Steve Jobs suggested that because time is limited, people should focus on living life on their own terms." This is perfectly fine. Here, I've paraphrased the quote and cited the original book. Now, let's dive a little deeper into some advanced quoting principles. We'll look at how to introduce and format a quote properly, the difference between short and long quotes, how to make changes to a quote correctly. Let's begin with how to introduce a quote. One of the most common ways is to use the author's name, like this. According to Jobs, 2018, your time is limited. You can also introduce quotes with simple phrases such as Steve Jobs points out, Steve Jobs argues that, Steve Jobs explains that. These are called introductory phrases, and they help your quote fit smoothly into your writing. Another option is to use an introductory sentence followed by a colon, and then place the quote after it. For example, Steve Jobs offers this advice about personal growth, colon, and then followed by the actual quote. You can integrate the quote directly into your sentence so it flows naturally with your own words. For example, Steve Jobs reminds us that your time is limited, encouraging people to live life on their own terms. You can introduce a quote using introductory phrases, a full sentence followed by a colon, or by blending it directly into your own sentence. All of these are correct. Just choose the option that sounds most natural in your writing. Now, let's look at the difference between a short quote and a long block quote. If your quote is under 40 words, you follow the standard rules. Place it inside quotation marks and add the citation at the end. But if the quote is more than 40 words, instead of using quotation marks, you place the quote on a new line and indent it, so it forms a separate block of text. This is called a block quote. Now, let's look at how quotes can be modified. Sometimes you find the perfect quote, but it's a bit too long, or parts of it aren't relevant. In that case, you could shorten the quote by removing words, phrases, or entire sentences, and replacing them with ellipses. Ellipses show the reader that part of the original text has been left out, while keeping the meaning of the quote intact. You can also add information to a quote. If a quote is missing details that are important for understanding, you can insert your own words using square brackets. For example, here's the original quote. They found that the participants improved their mental health. But we don't know who they refers to here, and we need a bit more context. So let's replace they with the researchers. To improve clarity, we'll also add after the 12-week program at the end. Now the revised quote looks like this, and it reads much better. The square brackets show that these extra words were added by us, not part of the original quote. Sometimes you might come across a quote that contains spelling or grammatical errors in the original text. If that happens, please don't correct the mistake. For example, here the original quote contains a typo, so you place sick in square brackets immediately after the error. This tells the reader that the mistake comes from the source, not from you. Before we finish, one quick reminder. Don't overuse quotes. Quotes should support your ideas, not replace them. Only quote when the exact wording matters. When it doesn't, paraphrase instead to keep your writing clear and genuinely yours. I hope you found the video useful. Finally, before submitting your work, don't forget to run it through FinalScanPro. Just drag and drop your document and let FinalScanPro check it for you. You'll receive a Turnitin style similarity report with all issues clearly highlighted and color-coded. You'll also get a revision report with suggestions to fix the issues quickly. Apply the recommended changes, recheck if needed, and you'll have a clean, original paper ready to submit. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you have any questions, please drop a message below. Bye for now.